This video is a film study look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's 3-touchdown performance in Detroit's demolition of the Chicago Bears in Week 2 at home on Sunday. St. Brown is a complete football player. He's one of the guys that I have consistently overstated or over-evaluated versus the way that other people categorize him. I was glad to see him, I think 20 or 21 or whatever, somewhere in that ranking in terms of the top 100. I still think that's low. If you watch him, you get the sense that he could do anything. Go out and make tackles on special teams, probably play defense and cover people. I'm not sure that I would want him tackling guys. He gets credit and attention for his catches and production, rightfully so, right? In this win against Chicago, 9 catches, on 11 targets, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. He lined up at fullback in this game. I won't show you that play. He lined up at running back. I'll give you one example of that. I'll show a couple of his blocks here. In fact, I think we'll focus on 2 or 3. Really only going to display film from the first half because you get the sense from that, the versatility that he provides. And him and Goff really just hammered this Bears defense over the middle of the field. The second half continued an onslaught, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to cut the film in terms of what I focus on here, up to the point where the Lions have taken a 28-14 lead. So this is the first possession. In fact, first play of the game. I'll usually spot shadow St. Brown in yellow. The route configuration that you're going to get, he's basically running a deep over concept. Jamison Williams, a clear out from the top side. It's 11 personnel group, and in the backfield is Sam Laporta, and he's going to pass pro in this situation. So I love this formation. 11 personnel, but a 20 personnel formation. Spread I is what we would call it. 3 actual wide receivers, but you still maintain a run threat in the backfield with a fullback / tight end to possibly lead. Here's the space that St. Brown is running onto. This is Tyreek Stevenson, who's a very talented athlete, a good football player, but Detroit took advantage of him. Look at how all that space is opened up by the threat of Jamison Williams up to the top side of the screen. First play of the game, Goff and St. Brown and John Morton, for that matter, reveal their intentions in terms of how they're going to attack the Chicago's defense. Same play from the end zone angle. Like I said, I call this spread I out of 11 personnel. That's Gibbs and Laporta set up in the backfield in the I configuration. Jamison Williams on our left, Goff's right, is going to run the clear out route. If he was uncovered, don't get me wrong, Goff will potentially throw it to him. Real nice pocket provided. And again, Laporta is part of the pass pro. Drastically different from last week against the Packers, if you ask me, in terms of Goff just being able to set up, survey the field, and in this case, he's getting St. Brown coming across left to right for him, right to left for us against Stevenson. Huge amount of space or separation, I guess, perfectly dropped into that open area. Safeties didn't appear to be on the same page, in my opinion. One of them took off with Williams to cover him, and the other one was looking for Williams as well. So basically on the first snap of the game, you've got, I think, somewhat of a breakdown for the Bears. The coverage was 2-man, and Detroit gets 34 yards. First quarter, still the same possession. Now, he gets decked on this play, he being St. Brown. It's a 12 personnel, but I'm illustrating this one to show you how willing he is and unselfish to go block. And then, regardless of result, he'll do the same thing later in the first half and in fact, have a better result on that instance. He's going to block up to the safety, so he'll kind of chip the corner for a moment and then work up to the safety, who is Brisker, who certainly didn't like it. It ends up being a 5-yard run. I'm here. I'm pausing it for a moment, so he's not actually staying there with that corner as much as it looks like by the fact that I paused it, but it's just a slight touch or chip, if you will, on the corner. And then he works up to the safety. In this case, Brisker really gets into him and decks him with a shot in his grill, and then really drives St. Brown backwards. Gibbs ends up getting 5 yards on the play. Notice this one and compare it to later on in terms of how willing he is to block. When I say that he's a football player, what I mean is he brings the same tenacity to run plays when he's in the backfield, run plays when he's asked to block, or pass concepts, which is what we're going to focus most of this film study on, and what he rightfully should get a ton of attention for 9 catches on 11 targets, like I said. Second possession after Detroit opened with a touchdown, and then Chicago matched it. 11 personnel, 1st and 10. You guessed it. Pretty much the same concept. Slight variation down here. Tesla's going in motion from 11 personnel. He's going to run the wheel, but Jamison Williams running a seam vertical. A little bit more traffic, don't get me wrong. St. Brown gets bumped a little bit, and there's more guys to run through. So he kind of gets touched off of the line by a D-end or outside linebacker, if you will. Play action from Goff, who's clearly looking into that space, that area. But when you get the end zone angle, you'll see Goff's actually looking at this guy, the inside linebacker, because he's matching. Let me get rid of that a little bit. Goff's looking here because that inside linebacker is matching that route from Gibbs. So as Gibbs goes out in the flat, so does that inside linebacker. That's what Goff is actually looking at to make sure that space is opened up as much as possible by design. This is the one. They ended up punting on this possession, by the way. It's a little low throw, I guess, but I think St. Brown and Goff are on the same page almost at all times, so it probably meant to throw it a little bit low, maybe not that low. Goff will look at this inside linebacker first to make sure that he is, in fact, matching Gibbs going out in the flats. And you can see it's Edwards. He does. And in my opinion, that's what Goff is looking at initially, because as soon as 53, Edwards clears, Goff's attention immediately turns to St. Brown over the middle, and all that space, that window, if you will, allows St. Brown to run onto it. A little bit better coverage. Jalen Johnson, who's a super talented guy as well, but nonetheless, St. Brown gets 16 yards. You saw this variation utilized over and over and over again. I think this is on the same possession, but I might have my possessions wrong. Only going to give you the end zone angle. Look, St. Brown doesn't do a great job here. Don't get me wrong. And in fact, I wanted to point something out. I left myself a note there. I called Khalif Raymond Reynolds in a video last week preview. So, my apologies for that. I'm not sure where that came from. But the design here is St. Brown's going to pin down on this defensive end. We're talking about this guy right here. I think it's 69. And then the tight end and the right tackle, Sewell, are going to pull to the outside. It's pin, pull, pitch. And St. Brown, St. Brown just doesn't have enough size, strength to be able to hold that guy down like other receivers do at times. Could St. Brown do a better job? Yeah, I think he could. But the point is, he's tasked with doing these things while he's going to be a 100-catch receiver, probably once again. I think at this point, 13 catches through 2 games. A little bit less of a catch percentage than last year, but last year was ridiculous at 81.6%. St. Brown did finish that play on the ground. Difficult to do if you ask me. Third possession now. This is they're going to take a 14-7 lead on this possession. In fact, he's down here to the bottom side of the field. Under center, you guessed it, somewhat similar concept. I guess the difference is this time St. Brown's not running that route. He's not the first crosser, if you will. Laporta is. It's a dig, essentially. I thought for a moment that Goff saw this corner blitz from the boundary, talking about right here, because when I was running this slow speed this morning, taking a look at it, I was like, okay, it looks like he looked over there. But when you see the end zone angle, I don't believe Goff actually saw it. Montgomery certainly did, because Montgomery's going to pick it up. I mean, if you saw it, then you're going to throw the ball to Jamison Williams. It's a huge problem in that they don't have a safety. They don't have a safety over there. But getting back to St. Brown, remember St. Brown is running this kind of later dig route. The inside linebacker, Edmonds, is taking over Laporta's route, and that's going to leave, again, all that space for St. Brown to run onto against Stevenson. This is the one, he almost takes it to the house, if you will. Catch here, ton of room or separation, if you want to call it that. Goff throws it out in front. Stiff arm Stevenson, who does keep staying with the play, don't get me wrong. But St. Brown, for being such a small guy, he's just tenacious, man. He almost gets in the end zone on this one. A pretty brilliant setup, if you ask me, especially early in the game. How many times they hit the Bears' defense over the middle. Edmonds, again, is the guy that's going to take over this route by Laporta. I tried to color-code it, if you will. Play action, and as we run this a couple of times, I don't think Goff sees it. I think the flow of this is where Goff goes with the football, is to see, maybe Laporta springs open, maybe there's an inside linebacker blitz or something, and if not, then we'll hit St. Brown on the dig. So I don't believe that Goff sees this corner blitz. In any case, he's quick off of Laporta and over here to St. Brown, who's off screen to our bottom right. He's like a computer, 0, 1, check, boom, throw. Again, separation over the middle for St. Brown. Think about a defense preparing for St. Brown next week, right? All of these in-breaking routes, dig concepts, over concepts, whatever you want to call them, you're going to scout that and of course, try to have a game plan for it. Well, he's super talented, and Goff and him are incredibly in sync. So next week, you'll probably see him on a bunch of whip routes or return. to the outside where the defense kind of overreacts or overcommits to the first in-breaking route or crosser. Lions are up 14-7 after that third possession. This is fourth possession now. In fact, Branch has just forced the fumble by Swift. It's a 3rd and 9. I think this is a really nice job by the inside linebacker, Edwards, up to the top side of the screen. It's essentially a shield routes, two shield routes, really, by Khalif Raymond and Jamison Williams up to the top side. And here is Edwards, who is dealing with St. Brown on kind of like a return, whip, China in, whatever you want to call it. Goff is clearly on that route in terms of where he's looking. The read side is to that side. That's where the 3 receivers are. We wouldn't anticipate that these 2 verticals or seams, I guess, would come open. Really nice job, if you ask me, of Edwards of getting the stop on that play, not giving up his leverage on the fake or what looks like it could be an outbreaking route, and then making the tackle. The Lions had to punt there. Eventually would take a 21-7 lead. Like I said, I'm really only going to focus this film on the first half, trying to get it out as quickly as possible this morning. Here's a 3rd and 10. They do miss a field goal on this possession, opportunity to go up 17-7. So this is a really nice job by, I think it's Edmonds over the middle. He'll kind of wall off this route by Raymond from the backside. But again, you've got a deeper in-breaking route by St. Brown after a clear-out concept up the seam by Jamison Williams. 24 is trailing underneath of JMO, and it's because he's on the line, and then he's going to trail underneath of it. I don't necessarily think it's trail man technique, but, because they have 2 safeties that are deep here in Brisker and Biard. And then this is Jaylon Johnson. Really nice play by him, if you ask me. I think St. Brown maybe bends this route in a little bit instead of being perhaps sharper, and that allows Jaylon Johnson to undercut it, but it's also possible that Johnson, swiping or pulling down a little bit down here is what kind of forced St. Brown upfield a little bit. 3 times yesterday, Johnson was trying to undercut some of those routes, and it worked in that case. Same play from the end zone angle. You'll see what I'm talking about with the inside linebacker. So he's at the line of scrimmage, 49, that's Edmonds. Him and Edwards are at the line of scrimmage, and you'll see Raymond come across the field, and Edmonds opens up to him and kind of walls that off, and he'll take that route over as Raymond goes all the way across the field, left to right for us and for Goff. Really great play, if you ask me, by Johnson. Nonetheless, it does hit St. Brown in the hand, so I get it. Some people are going to say, hey, you got to catch that football. There is, definitely a fight, some challenge there. I think it's a great effort by him. Ton of in-breaking routes. You have to expect that eventually, at some point, the Bears are going to actually defend one of them, and in this case here, we've got 2 examples of it. Edwards on the 3rd and 7 on the 4th possession, and then here Johnson on the 3rd and 10 on the 5th. 6th possession, still into the first half. It's a 3rd and 4, and they've inverted St. Brown and Montgomery. So Montgomery is out here at wide receiver. I think this just illustrates the versatility of what St. Brown can do. This guy is Biard, and so something interesting happens before the ball is snapped here. When Biard was over to this side, it looked like Goff was changing the play. Maybe he was going to change to a 2-man screen down here because the Lions had numbers, absolutely in their favor. Biard goes back over to the bottom side of our screen to create, a 2-on-2 down here. Like I said, this is a 3rd and 4. This is an important moment. It's a counter scheme, and man, I think this is a great job by Mahogany. Mahogany's going to roll through here on the counter, the pull, and as he does, there's no one there. There's no one for him to kick because the defender's being engaged by Sewell. And when he wraps, there's still nobody there. He goes to get Edmonds. Brisker from the backside gets in there close enough to contest it and make it a close thing. There's a little bit of a timing issue between Goff and St. Brown in terms of the handoff. It makes sense right there. He's not back there often, but this to me shows how much they trust him, rightfully so, in a 3rd and 4 that they'll put him in the backfield. Biard is the guy who spot shadowed here. This is Laporta kind of telling Goff, hold on, don't. I think Goff was going to change the play, and this is Laporta telling him, no, don't, we're good. But I could be wrong. Obviously, those guys are 18 levels above me in terms of their understanding. In any case, St. Brown in the backfield, and it's a counter scheme. He gives a little bit of a counter step also. to kind of maybe widen this guy up a little bit. You have to think when you see St. Brown in the backfield, especially to the boundary, that you're going to get one of these because that's how Ben Johnson utilized him a lot the last couple of years. When he was in the backfield, no, John Morton really being ahead of the Browns defense, if you ask me. Again, this is Mahogany coming through here on the counter scheme, and he's going to go get Edmonds, and I think that's a key block because Edmonds, first of all, isn't in the gap, but at least this, and from this standpoint, he was prevented from doing so. Decker also comes through on the backside as the left tackle. Brisker makes some contact. St. Brown is able to pick it up. Cool play, cool variation. Has to be frustrating going up against those guys at this point. Still 6 possession, and this is what we're talking about in terms of the tenacity for St. Brown, whether he's getting the football as a receiver, whether he's lined up in the backfield and run the ball, or whether he's asked to block. It's a 1st and 10 out of 12 personnel, and it's YY trips. So he's going to immediately chip or touch the safety. They've inverted the safety in the corner here. This is Biard, and I think that is Tyreek Stevenson. So all they've done is drop the safety down and pull the corner back. St. Brown immediately touches him or engages him slightly, and then he's going to allow Laporta to take him over. Watch him get a little bit of a shoulder on Biard, and that just kind of expands the safety a little bit for Laporta to take him over. And in addition to that, St. Brown moves up, gets enough of Stevenson to kind of knock him off balance. And once Montgomery is through the first level of the defense, that just helps spring him free a little bit more. I think it turned out to be an 18-yard gain. The run game, really started to pop yesterday right around that time. They would go up, I think 21-7, and then Chicago would get a touchdown. I believe it's 21-14 here. This will be the last couple of plays that I actually show you. Less than a minute left in the half, and this had to be frustrating for Chicago. They've just scored to get within 7 points, and they get the ball to open the third quarter. A little shake slant here by St. Brown against a dime look. This is the nickel defender typically to the field, and this I would consider to be the dime, but in the Bears' defensive structure, perhaps the dime is to the boundary, Biard, and the nickel is to the field. I think it's 24. In any case, nice little shake slant by St. Brown. So many in-breaking routes. I'm quite sure that next week or in ensuing weeks, you'll get some type of correction by defenses, overcorrection perhaps, and leaving themselves susceptible to in-breaking routes. Like I said, this was an important moment, getting past midfield that quickly, first of all, but then going down here and getting the touchdown late. There's Biard as the dime linebacker, what I would refer to it as. Goff got a wide open lane. Sometimes we don't talk about that enough, myself included, that the pass rush, depending on where it goes, can just leave open huge swaths of the field from a visual standpoint. In addition, Edmonds was leaning over to the boundary side where Laporta was, unable to impact this play at all. Another clean win on an in-breaking route for St. Brown and Goff. Finally, the play that's coming here. We refer to this as a fade out. According to the play-by-play, it's got 4 seconds left in the half when they snap the ball. I find that interesting. I'm willing to admit that I could be wrong here. They have it at 4 seconds when the ball was snapped, and then 2 seconds when they score. So that sounds a little off to me. This seems to take a little bit more than 2 seconds. But the route is designed to fake a fade. So to make the corner, in this case, Stevenson, think that you're going to run a fade. Sell the fade, in fact, but then run the out. Other people have different names for it, but the point is you just reduce the area. You reduce the area, the initial fade, and then let's change colors a little bit. Bringing it back, you don't bring it back parallel to the line of scrimmage. You kind of bring it back down. So it's a fade comeback, I guess some people have referred to it as a comeback. Him and Goff knew what they were doing. Goff is already pulling the pin here to deliver the ball. Beautiful play for St. Brown. A clean win. In that tight a space, in that small a space, that's a real home run, if you ask me. He had a brilliant first half. He had a brilliant game overall, don't get me wrong. Like I said, 9 catches. It really looked easy for Goff and St. Brown, and that's not disrespectful to say about Chicago's defense because I actually have a lot of respect for them. I think they've got a lot of talent over there. Brisker as a safety, Johnson and Stevenson at outside corners. Biard is certainly a very accomplished safety. Goff and St. Brown just wrecked them, totally shredded that defense, regardless of what the focus was before the game. Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, the 2 new coordinators, starting off 0-1 in Green Bay. This was a total annihilation of a talented defense. I don't know what Chicago's record's going to be. I really haven't watched the offense, Chicago's offense versus Detroit's defense from yesterday, other than to collect plays for a Brian Branch video that I'll put out sometime a little bit after noon. This was a one-sided beatdown from Goff and St. Brown. I think they showed, I mean, we do have to give credit for Morton, right, for creating those high percentage situations. But for me, this showed that those two guys, regardless of who's calling plays, regardless of who they're going against, they are premium talents, premium players at their position. I think it starts with Goff, 5 touchdowns, high efficiency. I think 23 of 27 or 23 of 28 passing. St. Brown being 9 of 11. The crazy thing is that's right in line with his catch percentage from last year, maybe a little bit higher. I think remarkable efficiency, remarkable ability to execute in high-pressure situations. You guys let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you enjoyed this one, please let me know. First of all. Second of all, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look at Amon-Ra St. Brown in Week 2, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.